Crack the code. Mastering negative forms for advice in English. Hello, language explorers. Are you ready to boost your English proficiency to the next level? Today, we're going to delve into negative forms for advice using modal verbs. Modal verbs are special verbs that we use to express possibility, obligation, permission, and advice. Our focus will be on how to give advice using negative forms. So, let's get started. Modal verbs are auxiliary, or helping, verbs that express modes such as ability, possibility, permission, or obligation. For advice, we often use the modal verbs should and ought to. For example, you should drink more water, or you ought to study for the exam. To make these modal verbs negative, we simply add not after the modal verb. So, should becomes should not or shouldn't, and ought to becomes ought not to or oughtn't to. These are used to give negative advice or suggest that something is a bad idea. For instance, you shouldn't eat too much junk food, or you oughtn't to procrastinate. When forming questions with modal verbs, we reverse the order of the subject and the modal verb. For instance, should I take the bus? Or ought I to call him? When these questions are in the negative form, we include not. For instance, shouldn't we leave early to avoid traffic? Or oughtn't you to rest if you're not feeling well? Let's put our learning into practice with some examples. 1. You shouldn't drive if you're tired. 2. Shouldn't we ask for directions? 3. They oughtn't to ignore their health. 4. Oughtn't I to apply for that job? Remember, practice makes perfect. So try to use these structures in your daily conversations. And that's a wrap. You've now mastered how to use the negative forms of modal verbs to give advice. Isn't it simple once you get the hang of it? Remember, the key to mastering any language is practice. So, don't shy away from using what you've learned today. Thank you for joining this session. I hope you found it helpful. Stay tuned for more lessons to conquer the world of English language. Until next time, happy learning!